Yeah, sure. I mean, there's someone called Rad Podell on the call, but I'm guessing he's a guest. I can see Carl. Carl's waiting in the lobby. Mm.
Yep. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Yeah.
Perfect. Now everyone can hear me. Right. So, as I said, we've been doing these for just over 4.5 years now, where we seek to help founders like yourselves with whatever questions you may have in terms of finding, hiring, keeping, and empowering the right people for your business. The idea is quite simple. You see, unfortunately, over 90% of startups fail. Top three reasons for that are one, market fit, two, running out of money, and three, not having the right people. Hopefully, that third reason is what we'll be able to help you with today. In terms of how it all works, it's quite simple. You see, we'll have some quick introductions. Then I'll ask my panelists for their main do's and don'ts when it comes to early stage hiring. And then we'll start taking your questions. There are no wrong questions. There's no need to be shy. It's a learning curve for us all. And in terms of what we do on Talent here today, you may want to know perhaps how to find a co-founder, or maybe how much to pay a contractor, or perhaps what kind of essentials do you need for that first hire, or maybe where's the best place to advertise for a certain role, how to interview them, how to maybe test them in what they do and what they say they do well. Anything within that sphere, again, there are no wrong questions and there's no need to be shy. It's a learning curve for us all. If, however, your questions today are not on talent, please save them for the other conversations we run. On Mondays, it's talent. On Tuesdays, it's product and tech. On Wednesdays, it's growth. On Thursdays, it's fundraising. Second Friday of each month, it's UK startup law. And third Friday of each month, it's UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. They're all available on our site, startuptoscaleup.club. Or even better, you can join us on Luma, and there you'll get alerts for various events that if you join our page there. Now, for those of you that are on the live streams, please be aware that unfortunately we are unable to monitor your questions there live. So if you've got any questions for us, you'll need to join us here on Microsoft Teams, which is a audio only call, and it means that you can tune in from anywhere via any device or platform, and it's free. And if you're anything like me, it also means that you don't need to spend an hour in front of the mirror. Now, again, whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, please remember that unfortunately we are unable to monitor your questions. I can see people trying to message me via LinkedIn. Unfortunately, you'll need to join us here because we can't monitor your questions there. So Microsoft Teams, it's very easy to join now. You simply go onto our site, startuptoscaleup.club, Scroll down a little bit, you'll find today's session, Startup Talent Q&A 172. Click join. It's a quick registration on Luma, and then you'll see the link to the Microsoft Teams there. We've had about 290,000 people tune into our sessions in the last 4.5 years, and none of that would have been possible without people like Rosie, Lou, Carl, and Jeff. So please feel free to at least follow them on LinkedIn. And panelists, if you'd like to share your LinkedIn details in the chat, and perhaps one thing that you like getting involved with when it comes to startups, that would be great. Otherwise, the others here as well are more than welcome to drop their LinkedIn and just where you hail from. I guess it's time for some introductions now. My name's Anton Kool. I'm an Albanian in London working with startups. Normally, right after they get investment, I embed within their teams and help them hire and keep the right people. I also do some growth advisory work with a few other startups and accelerators, and help some angels and family offices with their due diligence and assessments. And just before I pass it on to my panelists, we are going to be live in person in what they claim to be the world's biggest business event, which is this week at the Excel, and that's the business show, or the London Business Show as it's called in London. We'll be live for Startup Growth Q&A on Thursday at 2:45, Theatre 12, Thursday, 14:45. But without further ado, let's start with the ladies, Rosie, Lou, and then Carl and Jeff, please.
Thanks, Anton. Hi, everyone. My name is Rosie Hewitt. I'm founder of Rosie's People Limited, a global leadership, people and business operations consultancy. And I have been in the people operations, business operations space for more than 2 decades. And about the last 15 years has been primarily in the startup scale-up VC-led world in the fintech space. Happy to be here and share knowledge. Please do connect on LinkedIn and feel free to reach out if I can assist.
Am I next, guys? Sorry, I wasn't paying attention, I will admit, but I think I was next. I'll jump in anyway. I am Lou Matthews, and I'm founder of The Culture Craft, and we build the operating systems that unlock potential. So whether that is in your people, in your startup, in your revenue line, and that really is all about replacing the chaos of scaling with intentional systems that really make high performance inevitable. And we do that with a product approach. So our delivery is sprint-based. We work in fixed scope projects, transparency around pricing, acceptance criteria, all of the things that matter to scaling businesses.
Great. Hi, I'm Carl Tischler. I work as Chief People Officer to small deep tech businesses primarily. But the majority of my time is in an academy called the HPNA Academy, where we train high-performing professionals in how to bring executive self-management to their lives, or basically put differently, to take the professionalism and rigor they use when you're dealing with a client or an investor, and instead apply it in service of themselves so that they can have better physical and mental health and better intentionality around career and life. That's all.
Cool. And my name is Jeff Wellstead. I'm an American living just outside London these days. Been here for about 20 years, and I've been building HR functions and people strategies from scratch for startup and scale-up companies all around the UK, typically headquartered here, who then typically want to grow globally. And so I help them with that process. I've worked with as many as 17 different clients at this stage. My background spans really kind of anything from high growth tech companies and biotech companies to, global transformation work with much larger entities. Because I'm really kind of, my thing is turning HR into a real business accelerator, because I feel like that function should really help and be right next to the CFO, the CRO, all the other kind of C's in the organization. to really be driving strategic change powerfully. These days, my work sits primarily in the use of AI and similar tools in that technology space to really kind of help accelerate HR out of the daily doldrums and administrative governance and policy enforcement types of tasks that we often find ourselves in, and then frees people up to kind of do much more strategic, much more powerful work, much more commercially impactful work. So that's what I've been doing lately. Otherwise, yeah, thrilled to be here, and can't wait to get tucked into your problems and concerns and questions.
Thank you very much. Well, we've got an absolutely stellar team today with us. So let's hope we can make use of them well. Right, Joe, we've got 48 minutes to go. So start getting your questions ready, please. Again, quick reminder, if you're on the live streams, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, we can't monitor your questions there live. So you'll have to join us here on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only, which means you can tune in from anywhere via any platform or device. Simply go to our site, startup2scaleup.club. Scroll down a tiny bit, you'll find Startup Talent Q&A 172. Click join. It's a quick registration on Luma, and then you'll be able to access the link for the Microsoft Teams bit. So obviously here we're trying to help founders with your talent journey, finding and keeping the right people in essence. So in terms of finding and keeping the right people, I'm sure our panelists have seen some horrible stuff out there, but also brilliant stuff. Let's see what are their one do and one don't when it comes to early stage hiring. And please don't use the same for both, the same logic for both. Maybe we can start with Rosie, Jeff, Carl, and then Lou.
Thanks, Anton. I was having a bit of a fiddle with the mic button not responding. So I think for me, one do would be have a clear shopping list. It's important when you start searching for your people that you know exactly what you're looking for, whether it's skills, behavior, you know, where you need to be very honest with yourself, what you're lacking, what you bring to the table, what could complement your team, what your team needs. If you need a co-founder, what do they need to bring to the table? If you're looking for software engineers, what skills do they need that you currently don't have, that sort of thing. That would be my one do. My one don't that I would suggest, especially during early stage startups, don't make verbal commitments to people that you don't intend to honor. So don't promise things that when it's time to then document them, you suddenly have a lapse in memory. It's very important that you are upfront with people, because at that stage, when people are engaging with you at the early stages of your business, a lot of trust is being put on the table from both sides, supposedly. So it's really sucks to find out later on that actually it wasn't going both ways. So that would be my don't do that. That's icky.
Cool. Yeah, very, very spot on. Totally agree. So Jeff here, my do would be to build early days, build simple, repeatable systems as you are kind of like starting to shape up your company. Don't need to be regimented, don't need to be robotic, but it would be good if you could start tracking and developing and maturing your sort of standard operating procedures for things, only because when you start to go from startup mode to scale up mode, and you're hiring people in multiple different geographies and jurisdictions and things of that nature, things get confusing super fast. And if you haven't really kind of documented that stuff, it becomes chaos. The other thing is with regard to using tools like AI, aside from sort of the normal warnings that people often share in terms of, you know, not sharing your data as training data out there, and there are tools that will allow you to do that. Do start to experiment with these tools. Excuse me, they can really kind of propel you forward in terms of not having to do annoying, high volume, low value, repeatable tasks over and over again, and take you out of that, just take you out of that ditch because that's a real challenge, especially for early stage entrepreneurs, all of whom are running around with their hair on fire going, God, how are we going to get this crazy stuff done? And what you don't need is all this low level stuff weighing on you. So I would explore that stuff good and early. Those would be my two tips.
I think just relating to something that Rosie said before, I would really suggest not rushing into hiring people as employees. And related point to that is just keeping things as simple as possible about team structure and composition. I think a lot of the best things, especially at a startup to scale up phase, are situations where you can, work with someone as a contractor for a period of time. You get to know each other, you see how things evolve, and then if it makes sense, you can bring them on full time. I think if you were to look back and examine like probability of success around all kinds of different, hiring and business building, situations, those kind of ones, to my mind, pretty clearly have the highest probability of success. So not rushing to think, well, I've got to grow the business, therefore I need employees per se. You need people per se, but I just would be really careful and hesitant on that. And I would also just in team composition and structure, just try to keep things as simple as possible, even if that's in a remote configuration. Try to just reduce the number of moving pieces that you have. So those are some thoughts.
Hi guys, sorry. I would say focus on outcomes initially in terms of what it is you're looking to achieve by hiring that person or that role. I have made this mistake myself as a founder in a startup, where I thought I needed some EA support. This was going to change my world. It was going to free me up to be able to focus on way more sales, all the marketing, all the stuff that wasn't happening because of the admin. But actually, on reflection, realized sales is the focus. That was where I wanted to focus and where I wanted to build. So after making the mistake, I repositioned the need there for the business and invested the money and the budget in sales efforts, whether that was hiring or that was working with external agencies, focusing on what it was that I was really looking to do by hiring that person meant actually I could reflect and understand that wasn't the role that I really needed in the business. In terms of don'ts, I'm going to bring it right back to day one of hiring your first person, and a very real life situation for a client of mine this week. Your contract, yes, it needs legal review. But I will just state it needs legal review. That doesn't always happen. The don't is don't make it up yourself. Don't ChatGPT an employment contract. It will say all of the right things and it will read very legal jargon. But what can happen is, and what has happened in this instance is, there's been a lot of implied rights or unenforceable policies, and it's very much been conflated with an employee handbook. So yeah, my role here is to basically distinguish what should be in a contract and what should be a policy, so that you've got flex on what you can change over time, which is, what your employee handbook is for. And there's other things that, proper review and doing it right and making a bit of an investment in that will help. In early days, a lot of founders and startups have a bring your own device policy as an example. But actually one of the considerations, and there's lots of them around data protection, data processing, where responsibility and obligation sits, an employee's right to privacy, especially if you use third-party IT providers, that type of thing. So there's a lot that can go wrong when it comes to contracts. So I think a don't is wing it, do it yourself if you don't have the experience of actually writing them.
Thank you very much, everyone. Let's jump on to some questions now. There's one that was sent in. It's in the chat, so if the panelists would like to look at it, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, I'll read it out loud for the live streams. This is Aberdeen. Right, so we're 3 commercial founders currently at seed stage of our clean energy startup near Aberdeen, where we create energy efficient solutions for residential buildings. What should be included in our job specs for technical roles to ensure we attract candidates with the right skills and passion for sustainability? How can we make our job ads compelling and distinct from other clean energy startups? And then they also just sent another message on LinkedIn, asking if there's if there's any sites or AI sites that are good for writing job specs for free. I think we can start with Jeff on this. Then we'll go on to Carl, then Lou, and then Rosie. And if we can keep it at a minute each so we can go through a few questions today, that would be great, please, Steve. Go ahead.
Yep, got it. So I will give some thought to some tools that are out there that are AI driven that can help you write up compelling job descriptions. Look, everybody has kind of drawn up job descriptions previously and always ever includes sort of, the basics, the title, a bit about the company, what your accountabilities will be, what your responsibilities will be, and what you're looking for in terms of qualifications. And maybe, if anybody's lucky, there may be a salary range included in that as well. But oftentimes it's not the case. Look, I mean, those don't really tell you much. And they aren't horribly compelling, and especially when you're a small company and you're trying to attract people who each and every one of them is going to be game changing for your company. You want to make sure you hire the absolute best fit for the group. So, look, I think the thing is that your job specs really need to do kind of like three critical things in my estimation: inspire, clarify, and connect. I think that's really kind of the magic. And a lot of times people forget that this is a powerful marketing exercise. You're asking people to change their lives for you as an employer. So it's not a small thing. It's akin to, will you marry me in a way for some folks. And so it's important that we kind of like focus on the fact that we got to give them the bigger picture. I will always start with like a mission story, right? Talk to them about why your clean energy solution matters, right? Not just what it does. Candidates, I think, will kind of be drawn to the sustainability component and want purpose before perks. So listen for that. Listen for people diving in and saying, hey, I'm about to make a bet on you people as a company because I really deeply believe in, sustainable, support, energy, whatever it is you're doing. Make sure you kind of feed into that narrative, right? And then clearly define, what the impact of that role is going to be. As an example, like, this hire will create or shape real outcomes in the realm of like your designs will kind of reduce household energy by 20%. So people can actually start to visualize why this job is important and see and check in their own minds, like, does that align with my value system? And then we'll talk about culture, and then we'll talk about, everyday life in terms of that. So those would be my things. Talk to them about your mission, get them excited about the adventure, talk to them about why this stuff is critically important, and what impact they're going to have on the mission. And if they're still there at the end of the phone after all of that and wanting to learn more, then you might be on to the right person. And I'll leave it there.
Yeah, and I think that's great advice. Weirdly, I just helped a client do this recently who is in that space, also on the residential side. And I think the thing we really focused on, again, in hiring for a technical role, is being able to clearly articulate what the role is. What you do, and like in very simple terminology. And that's one area where I would actually just be careful with AI and potentially like sort of flowery, super descriptive language. I mean, I think it's kind of emblematic of a company that has its act together, that you can describe what the technical process is that you are doing as a company, and therefore where this specific role fits into. So it's kind of just going into further detail on a lot of the same themes that Jeff talked about, but the ability to do that is really, really important. And I think also echoing something Jeff said, think you've got to remember that the purpose of a hiring process is not to just hire someone. It's not to get bums and seats. It's to get someone who's going to be able to onboard and get up to speed quickly and deliver and be a great resource for you over time. So anything that's about that's too, I think, overly salesy about something, you got to be very careful of. So things have to be, to my mind, specific and really representative of the company, and the ability to clearly explain what the company does is, I think, of disproportionately high importance. That's it.
Hello. I have a few things. I think you've talked about a number of different priorities. I think when it comes to tech, communicating very clearly where's the opportunity for somebody in a technical role to work on new emerging technologies. That's always a big draw. But also opportunity to shape the business, the industry, and I think sharing data, case studies, beyond maybe just what you do, but actually the real world impact that they get to be a part of. I think in sustainability, one of the things that I would recommend you talk about upfront and in terms of communicating your integrity is greenwashing. So maybe not using that term, but basically finding a way to communicate how you uphold integrity and transparency around what it is that you do. I think for anybody who cares about sustainability, that's something that they're going to consider given the amount of it that does happen out there, unfortunately. And I think fundamentally, your job description and job spec should communicate balance, right? It's not all about you, unfortunately. You have a need that you are looking to meet through this hire and through this role, but that is the beginning of forming what should be a mutually beneficial relationship, right? And the language and tone that you communicate in your job spec should reflect the relationship in that way.
Thanks, Louise. All very great answers from my colleagues here. I'm just going to add my 2 cents to it. I would say that, and probably heard this already, the job spec, it definitely needs to be more than just a list of technical skills. You have a purpose here, so you should be telling the story of the purpose, ownership, innovation. You're competing, as you've said, you're trying to attract people that may be looking at bigger companies, already established companies, bigger budgets. So I'd be looking to make sure that the spec connects the technical role to the company's wider mission, and how that person's work actually contributes to reducing emissions or improving energy efficiency, that sort of thing. That sense of purpose might attract the right type of people you want into your organization. So the people where it's not just about compensation, they're interested in the actual work, they're interested in the actual build, they're interested in the impact of the work that they're going to be doing to the wider community. A lot of people who join startups want to be part of solving a problem. At the same time, given that you probably don't have a lot of money for competitive benefits, etc., you've got to keep a level of flexibility, whether it's in terms of hybrid working, remote working, and also flexibility in terms of the skills that you're looking for. My experience working in disruptive companies, startups, have been that, a lot of the times you are trying to do something that's not been done a certain way before. So sometimes the skills you actually need don't exist. You have to teach those skills. So you need to be able to identify the candidates who have 75, 80, 85% of what you're looking for, but need help getting the missing percentage. And you need to be willing to invest the time into making sure that they have that. And as long as they have the right mindset and transferable experience, they'll be more than happy to grow with you. And most importantly, which I find sometimes young startups and even existing companies don't do, even big organizations don't do, if you have somebody already doing a similar job within the organization, or if you have someone that you're expecting to be the person overseeing this person's work, have that person review the job spec. There's nothing wrong with using AI for the first draft. It makes everybody's lives faster, but it's important to also give it a good a nice pair of eyes, just to make sure that it actually captures the day-to-day technical and operational realities of what's required from that role. Someone who's going to be managing or collaborating with that hire will know what is needed. They will know what's missing when they look at that shopping list. And they will also know whether it sounds authentic or not, which is also important. So I think given the lack of budget for benefits, lean into the ownership and impact, be transparent about what stage you're at, what you're actually offering, highlight the opportunities to shape the product, the technology, the company's future, and the career opportunity that exists for that person to join the organization. So if you blend the purpose, growth, and the genuine voice of what you're trying to achieve, I think that will actually help you to reach the people you're trying to reach.
Well, that is amazing from all four of you, and I really appreciate that. Quick reset of the conversation, and then we'll move on to the next question. This is Startup Talent Q&A. It's our 172nd session. We're here until 1 o'clock, so that's 28 minutes from now, to try and help founders with whatever questions you may have on your talent journey. Whether you want to know how and where to find the right people, how to test them, how much to pay them, what roles to design for them, how to build your culture, maybe payroll, and all that jazz. There literally are no wrong questions and no need to be shy. It's a learning curve for us all. If you want to ask us questions, simply drop them in the chat. We'll give you the mic, and then you can go ahead and ask our team. If, however, you are on our live streams, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, you'll need to join us here live on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only, which means you can tune in from anywhere via any platform or device. Simply go onto our website, startup2scaleup.club. Scroll down a little bit, you'll find today's session, Startup Talent Q&A 172. Click join, quick registration via Luma, and then you'll see the link there. Now, if your questions aren't on talent, then save them for the other conversations we run. Monday's talent, obviously, as you see today. Tuesday's product and tech. Wednesdays, it's normally growth, although this week, because we're doing it in person at the business show, then we'll be doing this there. So you'll need to join us on Thursday at 14:45 Theatre 12. I've just posted a link here for you to get free tickets if you want to the world's biggest business event, and would love to see you there. But normally our growth Q&A, it's on Wednesdays at 12 to 1 p.m. Thursdays, it's fundraising. Second Friday of each month is UK Startup Law, and third Friday of each month is UK Startup Finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. They're normally all online here, audio only on Microsoft Teams. And yeah, once you make it here, then simply drop your question in the chat. My advice would be not to leave it for last second, because often we run out of time and are unable to take questions. So the earlier, the better. We'll now go on to our second question for the day. This is, okay, seed stage health tech startup in Oxford, mother and daughter founders focused on wearable devices for chronic disease management. As we hire a full-time product designer, how can we structure their onboarding experience to make them feel integrated into the team quickly and get them up to speed on our product development cycle? The question is in the chat, by the way, team, in case you want to reflect on it. But maybe we can start with Carl, then Lou, then Rosie, and last but not least, Jeff. Let's keep it to a minute each, please, team. Take it away.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think on onboarding generally, there's a really important thing about kind of meeting people with where they're at, including sort of like psychologically on a job. I think I at least have never seen a job transition in any context that doesn't bring with it a degree of, for lack of a better word, trauma with it. Just the process of interviewing and all of that is like deeply, deeply personal. And I think to ignore that, both as the employer and the employee, is a mistake. And I think the thing, again, for kind of particularly for high-performing driven people, is also similarly around things like imposter syndrome. And so, especially as it sounds like in a small organization like you're talking about, the willingness and ability to spend time really from the time a person signs a contract, not when their start date, but they're actually from their signing date, in just spending regular time with them, talking about these things and talking about their expectations. You could just makes a huge difference kind of before even day one that the person hits the ground. And so kind of throughout that kind of onboarding process, which you do have to think about a lot more if you are a small organization, you're not onboarding all the time. But I think investing the time into thinking about that, and I think investing the time as part of that in particular into really getting to know and to understand and to help kind of connect with that person where they're at is a big success factor into just onboarding and success of hiring more generally.
Hello. Oh, this is a really great question. I have a few tips, a few pointers. I think, firstly, making onboarding a shared responsibility. So regardless of the size of your team, talk to them about what their responsibilities are in terms of the new starter experience, how they contribute to that, whether that is because they have direct interaction or one-to-one meetings, or they actually don't work very closely together, but they still have the ability to impact and shape the lived experience of that new starter. I think making sure that everybody understands they have a responsibility in shaping that is really important up front. It goes without saying, if you can and if you've got the capacity to document your process up front, but the reality is that in a startup environment, most new starters are learning as they do. So I think there's a couple of things that I would prioritize that actually will help with people getting the technical knowledge and building that as they contribute in the real product development lifecycle. So something by way of a ways of working document. This is how we show up for each other. This is how we interact. These are the rhythms and the rituals in terms of meetings, what happens at each one, what's expected of people in them. If you can document that, that gives people a very real, tangible feel for what they can expect and what's expected of them. Decision-making rights, I talk about a lot. I think this is the simplest hack for pace and keeping things moving forward, but documenting how people get decisions made, what level of authority and autonomy that people have to make decisions and when they need to be escalated can actually alleviate a lot of the blockers that happen. Or some of that kind of mental internal battle that we often have with, oh, am I at liberty to make this, to do this? And people know exactly what to do and where to go. One of the things I think as well, when you're thinking of objectives, the technical ones tend to be the ones that are more easily measured. So you can build KPIs, whether they're qualitative or quantitative, but actually behavioral objectives are really important up front. So I have one that I put in place for anybody who works for the Culture Craft. I call it a figure it out approach. So what that objective does is it steers people with how they might look at a problem and what they can expect as well if they come to me with a problem. So I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to be that annoying person that says, well, what have you tried? So be expected to come with an overview of what you've given a go, of why it didn't work, and to be coached. And I think that's how you build initiative in people and the behaviors that actually are going to enable scale. When people think that way and look at problems with a critical mindset, they tend to get to the solution a lot quicker and generally on the whole by themselves. Another great one to include in your onboarding in terms of training is managing up or internal stakeholder management. I'm always amazed at the number of people who don't really see this as applying in their roles. So if they're not client facing, well, I don't need to think about stakeholders, but actually managing up effectively for me means I have information from my team before I realize I even need it, but it's there to hand. I'm not asking them questions. I'm not having to chase things down. And then that comes with the autonomy that they want and need to do their best work. And you don't need to pay for any expensive training. There's loads of stuff on LinkedIn Learning, on Udemy around that. So just find a really great course, make that part of your onboarding process. And that really leans into those behavioral objectives. And I think finally, you've talked about product development, and that's specifically what this role will support. Apply your product development process internally. That's what we do. That's the approach that we take at the Culture Craft. So, some of Scrum framework might be a bit square peg round hole, but take the parts that work and take the parts that will actually enable you to get the visibility, the flexibility around work that's happening. So for us, we have a weekly ops meeting. That's where we review sprints, we plan for the week ahead. And we create sprints in the project system that we use. We have daily stand-ups. Onboarding, I think, of all of the points of an employee life cycle is a brilliant way to use that framework. And on a weekly basis as well. That might seem short in terms of a cycle, but there should be a lot more touch points with a new starter. So I think what you're doing externally, and obviously very well if you're hiring, take that and see what you can do with it internally as well for that onboarding experience.
Thank you very much. And I think last but not least, Rosie, please.
Thanks, Anton. Some really great answers here. I think my colleagues have covered pretty much all of it. I think for me, what I would say is the key thing when you're still a seed stage. I do have questions which would have probably helped with these answers, which is, how big is the team? What onboarding processes already existed, but let's presume. But I would say at this stage, onboarding should be intentional but lightweight. You don't need a fancy HR system. You just need clarity and structure. So just giving very clear overview of your product development cycle, what's already in motion, what's upcoming, and who makes decisions, how are decisions made. It helps them to understand how things actually get done on a day-to-day, giving them access to any sort of user testing, any data that will help to inform them of how the product itself is testing with the intended demographic will also help them in thinking ahead of what you might need that you don't realize yet. And then I would say just make sure that there's time carved out in the schedule for them to spend with the founders early, especially since it's a mother-daughter team. That dynamic can become tricky for some people. So it's important that they are sort of embedded early on and shown that it's just part of the story and part of the culture and shown the positivity of it, as some people might be daunted by that. Let them see the dynamics, how calls are made and how you work, help them to integrate faster. So I'm sure I don't know what team is already in place, but if you do already have a lead engineer, it'll be good to buddy them up and whoever they'll collaborate the most with. The cross-functional link is what stops designers from working in isolation. And then finally, I would say just give them one meaningful but manageable design task in the first couple of weeks, something that lets them learn your product tools and constraints hands-on. It's the quickest way to build context and confidence and also allow them to see a clear path within that role. So in short, clarity, exposure, quick win.
Thank you very much, Tim. Really appreciate that. We are now 15 minutes away. Let's try and go through 2 more questions if we can. So if we can try and keep it to a minute each, that would be great. I've put a 3rd question in the chat. If anybody else wants to ask any questions live, that would be much better, more engaging, and perhaps even more useful answers, because we've got you here to then go back and forth. But nevertheless, question 3, which is in the chat, I'll read it out loud for the live streams. And by the way, if you're on our live streams, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, we are unable to take questions from you and monitor those questions live. So if you want to know anything about your talent journey and how to find and keep the right people, you need to join us here on Microsoft Teams. Simply go to our website, startup2scaleup.club. Scroll down a little bit, find today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 172. Click join, quick registration on Luma, then you'll be able to tune here. For those that are here already, simply drop your question in the chat. We'll give you the mic, and then we can take it away from there. So I'm one of 3 co-founders of a pre-seed medtech startup in Manchester, where we design devices to monitor patients' vital signs. How can we encourage a healthy work-life balance for our small team whilst we still meeting product deadlines? Also, what flexible working arrangements can we offer to employees, especially those in highly demanding roles? Ah, that's an interesting one. Perhaps we can start with Lou, then Rosie, then Jeff, and last but not least, Carl, please. Let's try and take about a minute each so we can go through one more question after this.
Super. Thanks, Anton. Yeah, you guys are in an interesting position. I worked for a medcoms company before, and the pressure to apply internally what you communicate externally was huge. And they didn't do a great job of it, if I'm honest. And it created a huge amount of friction for employees because they effectively lost integrity from an employee perspective. It felt like, what was going to bring the money in was priority, and, the company would do all these things externally, but actually internally they didn't care. I think for you guys, you have a higher degree of expectation and pressure to get this right when it comes to well-being in your industry. Some of the ways that I've done that with clients is decompression policy. So, time off in lieu, a policy around that in a startup can be risky, right? Because people quickly rack up extra hours and extra days worked, and you've created and put to writing a policy that says that they can take all of that back, when the reality is overtime is expected in a startup environment. So what I would say here is to be proactive, right? You're going to know when there's big delivery milestones, when the team have worked extra hard, when they're probably feeling the pinch. And getting ahead of that by saying to people, if there's a big delivery milestone on Friday, this delivery team take Monday morning off. A tip on that would be not to make it policy, because you risk making that kind of custom practice, and that leaks into a grey area of it becoming contractual. But, the flex on that to say, hey, we know that you must have been working really hard and we recognize that. The benefits for you guys are twofold, right? The team get to decompress, but they've also seen you recognize the hard work that they've put in as well. So I think having that kind of as an informal policy is really useful in startups. The other area I would say is wellbeing budgets. So you probably don't have the time or the budget for a big wellbeing program, but what you can do, and this is a great one for learning and development as well, is consider what small sustainable budget that you could allow per person, and then let people decide what that means for them, because wellbeing sometimes can go beyond work-life balance or physical mental health. Actually, it's financial as well. So allow people to apply to use their budget, you approve it, they expense it. It's a much cleaner way that does not eat into resource internally. And then finally, I would say, if you are brave enough to really, really commit to it in terms of, flexible working arrangements, focus on outputs and outcomes. A culture where you're not interested in the inputs and how people work and where they work, but once they deliver the outcomes and the objectives, is one where people get to decide what that flexibility looks like and means for them. So there's lots of research. That's a topic that I think we could have an entire call on, but I would have a look online and just see what that could look like in practice and what ways you could communicate that to your people, where, they get the flexibility, but they also assume the responsibility that comes with that as well.
Thank you, Lou. Rosie, it's you, and then Jeff, and then Carl, please. Yeah, I guess Rosie might be having some trouble. Shall we go to Jeff and then Carl?
Sure.
Oh, Rosie, here we are.
You got Rosie.
Go
Hey,
ahead.
yeah, my mic button's been acting a bit funny today. Sorry about that. But I was just saying, thanks so much for that, Louisa. It sounds like something that you're quite passionate about. We should probably have a session just for just this topic. Love it. So my 2 cents. I think at pre-seed, everyone's wearing 5 different hats. Burnout has just become something that's you don't even recognize is happening until someone literally has a proper actionable or visible reaction that makes you realize that that's happening. So it's very important to actually consider those things when you're at this stage in your business. I think the first step is to actually acknowledge that balance looks different in startups. I always tell people when they say, oh my God, you're so lucky you've had such a great career in the startup world. It's like, yeah, but it comes at a price. You know, startups sounds sexy, but it does come at a price. It's not just about the strict hours, it's about rhythm. Some weeks are intense, you have everything happening at once, and that's okay, as long as you also create space to recover afterwards, which a lot of startups sometimes forget to do. They're just in that 1,000 miles per second momentum, just build, 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 move, 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 and people do get burnt out and people do get exhausted, and then mistakes happen, and then bad decisions happen, and it ends up being more costly in the long run. At least I think so. So I would suggest that you build flexibility into your culture early. That would be my one strong recommendation to not just any startup, but all companies really. You know, allow people to manage some of their hours as long as outcomes are clear. Let people start later if they're working with data engineers in another time zone. What matters is delivery, not presenteeism. In my company, we work flexibly. I don't really care when you do your work, as long as I have things when I need them and you're meeting your targets and you're meeting deadlines. Everything else is sort of manageable. So you can also rotate high pressure cycles. Don't let the same person carry the load every sprint, because I've also seen that happen where it feels like only one person is carrying a lot of the load. So make it normal to take time off when you've closed the sprint. You know, sprints are exhausting. Sprints, especially when they're investor led. If you're trying to meet deadlines for investor presentations, people are exhausted internally and physically and mentally and every which way you can think of. You need to build in that recovery time as just part of your culture. Founders are the ones that set the tone. If you never switch up, no one else will. So you also need to be setting the example. I think that the flexibility becomes very important at this stage. That is something that I would definitely say if I was to give you one suggestion. Build that into your culture early. Get used to people not always being present, but actually being able to deliver, because you don't need presenteeism to actually have your product delivered on time. So, not timesheets. Things can get ridiculous, and people's health matters. And obviously, mental health is becoming much more stronger conversation we're having these days. Didn't always used to be the case when I first started in this industry. So I think the goal is to sustain your business. You don't want your company to become the company where people say, don't go there unless you want to be completely knackered every day and never get a break. And the ones who will stay because they see that you value them.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and then Carl.
Yeah, Rosie really kind of nailed a
Or
lot
was
of the
it the
points
other way
that.
around? Sorry, go on.
Oh, sorry, mate. I just said that Rosie, I think, really kind of nailed a lot of the critical points. The only thing I would caution you on, and I do believe you do have to have sort of this mentality where I guess you kind of have like structured flexibility, excuse me, you know, kind of built into what it is you're offering. Just make sure you're super clear on, pardon me, expectations and what you're trying to get across to people, and be quick to, excuse me, be quick to recognize great behavior and to call out where behavior is substandard, and jump on that is all I would say.
Yeah, I think the panelists all had really excellent observations and comments and suggestions on it. I think just to pick up on one of them briefly. I mean, if you go to work in a industrial factory, you know, they count the number of days without a industrial accident, and that's not a small thing. That's a main thing. And also with another, you know, companies that are there, they'll start a board meeting first and foremost by talking about safety records and stuff like that. And I think to the extent we can start sort of doing that and taking that sort of approach towards managing, it's kind of amplifying what the panelists said before, but tracking and keeping pride in the number of days between burnout, for instance, for someone on the team, stuff like that is directional, and I think really does make a big difference over time.
Thank you very much, team. Really appreciate that. We've got about 4 minutes to go, so perhaps time for one more question, if that's okay. And then if the others want to join us on future sessions, please feel free to either go to our website or perhaps look at our Luma page. You can register to all future sessions. I will quickly put the next question, or the last question rather, in the chat for the panelists to see, but also I will read it out loud for the live stream. So this is quite a question, unfortunately. But okay, as the co-founder of a pre-seed edtech startup in York, where we create interactive history modules tailored for secondary schools, we're finding it difficult to attract a full-time curriculum developer with both subject expertise and also technical skills. With limited resources, what innovative talent acquisition strategies can we use to appeal to candidates who are motivated by our educational mission? Additionally, how can we incorporate a vesting schedule in the compensation package to make our offer more competitive, ensuring long-term commitment to our team's goals? In terms of the second part, the vesting schedule, if you want some further details, join us on Thursday for Startup Fundraising Q&A, where we'll have some brilliant investors with us, as well as Friday on our Startup Legal Q&A. But maybe the first part, if Rosie, then Lou, then Carl, and then Jeff would like to take on, that would be great. And then we'll take it from there. Again, we've only got about 2 minutes to go, so the
Thanks,
shorter the
Anton.
better. The more concise we can be, the better.
I'll try to do my best rap game here. I'm terrible, by the way. So I've kind of spoken about leaning into purpose and flexibility. I think in the first question, I would say the same thing sort of applies here. People who are drawn to education or social impact often care more about legacy than titles. So make your mission front and center in how you pitch the role. Talk about why this work matters and who it helps. You can get creative about, where you source talents, not just job boards. Look at, teacher networks, education postgrads doing digital research, freelance instructional designers who might be looking for a mission-driven side hustle or project that could grow into something bigger. You could also structure the role quite flexibly, maybe start it as a part-time or project-based, with clear milestones and the potential to move to full-time once funding allows. So that kind of opens the door to more candidates who might not otherwise make the leap. So equity side, I would say, the standard vesting schedule with a 1-year cliff should be okay, but just be clear about what you're offering. Be upfront, and please document. Don't just have conversations with people. Give them something in writing so that there are no disputes in future. I'll stop there because we've run out of time, but over to you guys.
I'll take from the silence. I was next. This is a clanger to land us with on the time, but I'll give it a crack. I mean, I have so many questions about this, so I don't know if my answer is going to be as practical as I like them to be, but it sounds to me so niche, and I think you need to weigh up. Is your time better spent trying to find the perfect hire with all of these skills, or can you split that? And is there a way that you can test that if you just don't know what you don't know right now, because it is such a niche role? So a way that you could do that is start with contractors or fractional support. If you need a subject matter expert and a developer generally does not need to know the ins and outs of what it is they're building. If we've talked about product development, they want to know the user stories, right? They want to understand the pain points, what it is that the product needs to be able to do to address those and to be accepted. Scrum framework is a great reference point for understanding maybe why that developer does not need to have the SME in history. So I would just consider, is there another way that you can do this? Because the energy and time and I suppose opportunity cost that it might take to actually find exactly the right hire may just be more than it's worth.
Yeah, I would just add, I totally agree with what Lou said. Definitely look to break it into pieces. You can always bring it back together if you do meet someone who has all, but you know, the perfect is the enemy of the good for sure on this.
Yeah, and I would just mirror that basically. But I think again, this kind of points from an attraction perspective, points to a lot of the things we already talked about in terms of your employer brand and how it is you approach the market, which has got to be all about the mission that you're trying to kind of get done. And also, I think a focus on ownership versus, you know, kind of cash payment. And it's hard to find people who don't need that much cash. You know what I mean? These days, oftentimes people with those levels of credentials would likely have, you know, a lifestyle to sustain, and so it can be difficult trying to find that needle in a haystack. But if you get the right person, that person is there because they believe in your mission, they believe in your focus, they believe in what it is you're trying to do and deliver, and they want to basically have a legacy that they leave behind, that's truly meaningful and purposeful for them. So I think that's kind of where I would focus on. But again, from an ownership perspective, I think that's critical too, to show that you have, you know, a stake in this game, and that you're willing to basically take the risk, that this person is going to be a long-term asset for you. And I would probably, just to kind of be competitive and maybe slightly controversial, I would possibly accelerate that equity ownership, you know, to something like, say, 3 years versus 4 years, as an example, just to make it interesting, make it that much more enticing, you know, for people to come along. But that's just my 2 cents on it. But those are the areas I'd focus on.
Well, thank you very much for your time and amazing gems that you've dropped today, team. Really appreciate that. We are 3 minutes over the line, so perhaps some quick parting words if you've got time. If not, don't worry, I understand. But if you do, let's go to Lou, Jeff, and last but not least, Carl, please.
Sorry, Anton, do you mean parting words?
Yes, please.
Yes,
Anything you want to leave us
please.
with before we let you go?
Yeah, look, I will always just say to founders, this is so incredibly overwhelming when you've basically hired yourself to do every job in the business. And I know from firsthand experience, most of which you probably have never done before. And I think there's just so much thrown at you that, you know, you must do, you should do, you can do, you shouldn't do. It's hard to trust your own judgment. Keep it simple. Think about what you already have and what can you do more with. You don't have to have complicated systems, processes. And I think what I love about this panel is that everybody empathizes with that and has experienced the complexity and the unnecessary complexity, I will say, that can often come with that, and is focused on creating simplicity. This doesn't have to be difficult, and it shouldn't feel difficult. So if it does, I think it's worth considering where you're being pulled and where your energy and time and money is being pulled.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is a hard job. I think we all acknowledge that. This is very much an experience that affects your personal life as much as it does your professional life, and you're throwing yourself into it. So as you're doing that, it's super exciting to kind of run toward the flame. But as you get closer, you realize that flame is a hell of a lot bigger and brighter than you probably imagined it would be. So make sure you do take care of yourself, and make sure that you are keeping yourself in balance. Make sure that the people around you understand what it is you're trying to do, and have all sorts of support and joy and wonderful, you know, kind of thoughts for you, but also are there to kind of watch out for you, to the point where if you start to break, if you start to burn out, if you start to lose your shizzle, whatever it is you're potentially losing, that basically people are there to kind of, you know, kind of catch you, you know, before you fall, is all I would say. This is hard work. It's fun. It's exciting, and it's incredible. But again, just look after yourself. That's it.
Thank you, Jeff. Last but not least, Carl, please.
Yeah, I would just say I think like it's helpful to have in mind the kind of objective of um, not making mistakes that you could have avoided by speaking to others, whether it's forums like this or other founders or other professionals. People in general are pretty open to giving of their time and wisdom up to a point. And a lot of things, but not everything, but a lot of things in startup and startup to scale are kind of like solved problems if you've taken the time to kind of look into them. So yeah, I just say just be really mindful of what else is already out there and what you might be able to hack or get into with a quick conversation. That's all.
Well, thank you very much to all of you. I really appreciate your time and advice today. Also, thank you to everyone that tuned in, whether it was here interactively on Microsoft Teams or on the live streams, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram. Few things, well, three quick things before my part in words. Number one, we run 6 regular sessions. Monday's talent, as you saw today, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of each month, UK startup law, and third Friday of each month, UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. They're all available on our site or Luma for you to register. And we also have some amazing groups and a community on WhatsApp where you can connect with fellow founders, investors, operators, of course, our panelists / mentors too. And you can find our WhatsApp community at the top and bottom of our website, startuptoscaleup.club. There's a WhatsApp icon you can click on and join us. The third thing is that we will be attending and hosting our Startup Growth Q&A in person at the world's biggest business event on Thursday. So this Thursday, the 13th of November at 14:45 in Theatre 12 at the Excel London, we will be hosting our Startup Growth Q&A where I will have 4 panelists with us, people who've helped other businesses sell more or who've sold for their own businesses and maybe even exited some for a ton of money too. We've got some free tickets. I've shared the link here in our chat. You can also find the links on our WhatsApp community too. And as far as my parting words are concerned, just remember the startup journey can be exciting, but also quite challenging. So try to have some fun in the meantime and be kind to yourself as well as everyone else for that matter. Just one last thing I forget. Louise, you mentioned about having a specific session for certain topics. I'd be more than happy to help anybody who wants to maybe take this on by themselves and do it under the umbrella of the club. But we can talk offline if you like.
Brilliant.
That's good then. So hopefully we'll see you tomorrow for Startup Product and Tech Q&A, where I've got some brilliant product and tech people to answer your questions built in your early stage. But again, thank you and God bless. Bye-bye for now.